Hello friends, in this session we'll try to discuss about the production process and the stages and the requirements involved in a production process. Now let's look into the synopsis. The production process involves a basic 3-step program to be followed for the successful completion of any film project. It might be a video or a commercial. The same applies for anything. So basically there are 3 stages involved. One is a pre-production, the second is a production, and third is a post-production. Now in the pre-production stage is where all the planning takes place with which the project is to be commenced and how about the people involved in it and the finance medium to be sorted. The production phase is where the actual filming begins. The production would involve the main shoot and the B-roll. When I say B-roll, it's a behind the scenes. The final stage is the post-production where the content generated in the production phase is collated and put together to make a complete film as planned in the pre-production phase. It is then essential to find a distribution medium through which the production will be available to the general audiences. Let's look into the objectives. Now the objective is to learn in detail about the various stages involved in production process. Second is to analyze how to obtain funding for the project and to distribute the content produced. And the third is to understand the requirements of the production process. The production process refers to stages or phases required to complete a media product from the idea to the final master copy. The process can apply to any type of media production including film, video, television and audio recording. So the stages in each medium vary. For example, there is obviously no storyboard in an audio recording, you don't need that. However, the same general concepts work for any medium. It is very exciting when you first commission a film, but it can also be little daunting. The secret is, no matter what goes into the production, it goes through at least the same 3 basic stages. Depending on the nature of the particular production, the time these stages take to complete and how in-depth they need to be will vary. Each phase will have its own challenges depending on the project which you choose. For example, large-scale productions in television and film space will have dedicated teams working on each phase. So the timeline depends from medium to medium. Whether you are creating a short online video or a larger video, so getting familiar with 3 main stages below will enhance any form of the production. The 3 basic and essential stages of production process are classified as follows: pre-production, production and post-production. Pre-production is a fairly loose term which refers to tasks undertaken before production begins. So a lot of planning happens in the pre-production. Exactly what is included in this stage depends upon the medium and situation which you choose. For example, for a small video company, pre-production may refer to everything that happens before shooting begins. For example, meeting with a client, doing some research, probably sketching some storyboard on that, probably location planning, etc. The pre-production phase of a project is where all the planning takes place before the camera rolls. So you need to be well prepared before you actually go on to the shooting set. So it's measured in either minutes or hours or days of planning. So this important planning phase sets the overall vision of the project. So in the pre-production mode, no matter how small or large is the duration of the video, few notes have to be written down, no matter the duration of the video it may be, or no matter for what medium you are trying to produce. It can be a blog, it can be for your YouTube channel, or it can be for a film series. The production team will work on the creative idea for film, thinking about the style, scripting, devising questions for the interviews, and storyboarding. So as the project becomes more ambitious, the storyboard of the project can be worked on. Storyboards can really smooth out the entire post-production process when it's time for editing. This will be really useful if there are multiple people working on the project. Without a good plan and organization structure, the entire production process of video can be grim. Now it requires a very good idea of what it takes as far as the structure of the video is concerned. So you need to be very careful of the structure of the video which you are trying to produce. The time needed for the production and the equipment and the personnel to be acquired before the production process begins. Having a good vision of what it will take will save a lot of time, money and aggravation. It's always good idea to work a little bit ahead of time where the setup is supposed to be, the kinds of shot you need and what is to be included in the video. The pre-production stage of a film is incredibly important, especially on a larger shoots or on a tight deadline schedules. It's always important to remember that people cost money. So if everyone is held up while a location or a costume is sourced or a script is still being written, it is not cost effective production. So it needs to be planned well in advance. For feature films, pre-production is more specific and only begins when other milestones have been met, such as financing, screenplay writing, casting and major staffing. So the resource plays a very important role while making a film. So finalizing it is the most priority task which you should be thinking of. So in the pre-production stage, the following things are included. The location scouting, or it is also called as a location recce, props and the wardrobe identification and preparations, which plays a very prominent role, special effects identification and preparation, the production schedule, the set construction, locking the script before going on to the sets, a thorough script read with the cast, whoever is involved in the film, with the director and the associated parties. So by this stage, the team has been formed, which includes the producer, the director, production designer, director of photography, also known as cinematographer, the sound engineer and the editor. Now the producer is responsible for overall organization of the production, including with the director and the production designer, and comes to locations, interacts with the actors who would represent with the filmmaking and tell the story in the script. The director would take an overall creative responsibility of the production. It can be like the style of shooting which he is looking for, the kind of editing which he is looking for, and working with the actors to deliver the story in the script, including conveying the entire emotions needed and the dynamics of the character. So it's the director's responsibility there. The director of photography will add to the director in conjunction, and he'll be responsible for the entire look of the film and also contribute to the entire style of filmmaking, achieving what would have been suggested by the writer in the script. In film and video, production refers to the part of the process in which footage is recorded. This is what most people imagine when they think of film being made, like the actors being on sets, cameras rolling, etc. So the production phase is also known as the principal photography. The goal of principal photography is obviously to record all the required shots which have been planned in the pre-production stage and execute as per the storyboard. Now in large feature films, the beginning of the production phase marks the point of no return, the point at which it is no longer financially viable to cancel the project. So once you reach the stage, it's a do or die situation. You need to get the film out. At this point, it's almost always cheaper to continue until the project is finished than to deal with the actual financial fallout or cancelling it. Depending on the scale of the production, the crew starts with a camera operator, a producer, a director and required assistants. Other crew also include, which involves second cameraman, makeup artists, sound recorders and many more. Anyone who has worked for good and experienced production company will know their role and will look the entire production process very smooth and simple. Now the production crew may have one day to shoot a lot of footage, or that there would be only one shot at a time filming a particular scene or an interview would need to be perfect. So production crews tend to work around 8 to 10 hours per day and they need to be flexible. Now the production stage is the fun bit. It can also be the shortest part of the whole process. Shoots can often be quite hectic with cameraman, director, actors, and all the associated staff all trying to do their part. Deciding on the equipment to use requires a lot of thinking, who the target of the film would be and how it will be distributed and exhibited. This is a question of format. If the production is to be seen in cinemas, or it is made for internet, or it is made for television, or it's for an online film festivals. At this stage, it is essential to want to produce quality material so that there is a plenty to work with when the project goes into the post production stage. Now, it is best time to work with experts and use the equipment like a digital video camera or the lighting equipment, the sound equipment, etc. It's not possible to do a great job in the post production process if there is no great material to work with. So, the content becomes very important. Now, the equipment to be used for the different mediums of distribution is cinema, which requires high quality, possibly large scale distribution if it's going international, shot on a 35mm film or a high definition HD or on a red camera. Now, if the medium is television, you need to follow broadcasters' current technical requirements, which could range from full HD to DV cam. There is other stream which is emerging, that is small indie films. So, for small independent production for festivals and for web screenings, the format could be HDV or a DV cam or mini DV. So, the production begins once the footage is recorded. This process will capture all the scenes and information gathered in the pre-production process. During the production process, the lighting requirements, the framing, the compositions are all worked out on the stage. So, it is fairly common to shoot pickup shots in post-production process. Pickup shots may be required when a mistake is noticed or a script change is made, which is actually unusual, or even if a performance is deemed to be unsatisfactory to the director. Some projects will also shoot B-roll during the production process. B-roll is actually a supplementary footage that is included in the finished product. Post-production is a third and the final major phase of the entire production life cycle. It is often referred to simply as post. For example, we can sort that out in post. There are many things which can happen in post productions. The common tasks include editing the video footage, which is a raw footage, editing the soundtrack, adding sound effects, adding music, etc. You need to also add few titles and graphics, color and exposure correction, adding special effects, and if needed, reshooting certain scenes if required. This is where all comes together. The elements of the jigsaw combine to create a fluid story. Using the footage that has been filmed, the video is cut based on the style of the video. In some cases, post-production is relatively straightforward, consisting of choosing and arranging footage in the correct sequence. In most cases, however, post-production is time-consuming job, taking longer than the actual production phase. This stage can often take the longest, and in fact, when I say longest, it is broken basically into 3 stages. The first thing is the preparation of the footage, where the editors look at what material it's filmed. Then he makes sure that it is synced up properly and in the format which they can work on it and finally edit on it. The final part is actually editing the footage. This process of cutting and joining all the footage together, syncing with the audio in a way that a proper message gets across to the audiences. The editors work from the detailed briefs, scripts, short lists to complete a first edit. There are number of elements that can be added in the post to get a really dynamic video. Just like the script, in the post production where the work on the video matches or exceeds the expectations. Let's say an experienced editor can take what seems like a jumble of words and picture and make something truly spectacular. So editor workflow normally, he assembles the footage, he does the rough cut, he adds all the special effects, syncs up the sound, and finally give you a final cut which is shown to the audiences. Now what happens in a small size production? It is basically filmed for a blog, or it can be a video log, it's also called as vlog, with a single subject. During post production, the video can be enhanced even if it contains a single actor. During the recording process, the subject is filmed using different shots. If the subject has been filmed for the same distance, more advanced editors will allow shots to be cropped and zoomed. Any video will be enhanced with blended up of mixed of shots. Now for a large size production, film for a music festival with multiple locations and actors. Large film production houses are often filled up at the different number of locations. So during post production, the editor will be able to change the scenes and angles as per his requirement. Let's say for example, angle of an actor and the environment to help create an engaging story. Spending adequate time on pre-production process will definitely pay off and makes the entire production process smoother. Financing. Anyone who has produced an independent film will admit that most difficult task is raising money to pay for the production. Although the rest is not easy either. It is almost impossible to raise the money for it outside of friends or family or your close circle, or being fortunate enough to obtain intellectual property with a following of book rights or a life story rights, etc. Raising money is the key to any production, regardless of the position, experience, or the past credits. And there are only a few ways to actually accomplish that. The first and the foremost thing in raising finance is equity. Equity based financing is simply having investors contribute money, that is, the producer actually puts cash into the production in exchange for an ownership interest in the film and the profits derived from the exploitation of the film. While there are many number of ways to structure these types of deals with many different ways for investors to recoup their investments and turn into profit, they all revolve around the same question that must be answered. How much ownership does the investor receive for the investment? How will the investor want to be repaid for the investment? How will the investor see a profit? The foremost thing to remember when dealing with investors is to be upfront with them regarding the entire production process. Now, it's always a good idea to disclose the risks involved in it as well as other investment risks, or you could be held liable for misinterpretation or violating other securities regulations. Therefore, it is imperative that the money is spent to consult with an attorney on any equity structure. Now, let's look into the pre-sales. Now, pre-sales agreements are pre-arranged and executed contracts made with distributors before the film is produced and are totally based on the perceived strength of the project as assessed by each distributor after reviewing numerous factors including the script, the actors involved, and the marketing strategy. Once the pre-sales agreements are made, there are two ways to go about it: taking out a bank loan using the pre-sales as collateral, or receiving a direct payment at the discount from the distributors themselves. The final step is the distribution. You made the film, now you want to release it. So, distribution is where the produced content is seen, who is to see, how to plan on getting it to them. In the pre-production stage, figure out the media platforms you want to distribute to. It is probable to perhaps you want to expand the distribution outlets. From the outset, knowing where the film will eventually be seen is vital, as shooting and the production techniques need to be tailored to meet the final exhibition requirements. What may work on a window on a computer screen may not exactly work on a film screen, and the same applies to both. Some critics and some audiences are critical of films. In the films, they look like the films they were made on television, so they comment on the visual aspects of it. Never mind, audiences cannot be told how to watch the film. It's obviously their choice, but it is possible to try to produce the best film for the given format which is available. Increasingly, the final edit will be printed in different formats for all types of existing distribution methods. This may involve compressing video using different codecs, some of which will be available as default settings in the DVD production software. Increasingly, the internet is making all the possible methods of distribution in the past filmmakers could only dream of. Web-based communities of filmmakers such as Shooting People, and Vimeo has the latest advice on distribution and exhibition for independent producers, and film clip websites like YouTube can possibly create and help new filmmakers to reach a huge audiences there. There are growing numbers of media platforms on which the product can be seen. The internet, a Facebook, a website company intranet, large screens at major events, or television set, or possibly mobile phones, CD, DVD, Blu-rays. Now the list is endless. Getting the essentials. A professional camera or an equivalent. The homemade aspects of the footage is directly related to the story, marrying the form to the content. There are lots of commercially available home recorders. Companies like JVC, Canon, and Panasonic have relatively cheap cameras that are mobile, effective, and looks great. Now coming to the editing software, there are a lot of editing softwares out there in the market. Complex and professional editing softwares like Video Editing Magic or Avid Free DV are available. Two free but very professional movie editing tools available are OpenShot and Lightworks. Now filming location, looking at what locations are available and considering what stories might evolve from the location is the first step. Businesses and restaurants are often hesitant about letting amateur filmmakers use their property for filming, but one can always ask. You need to ask for it. Until unless you ask, no one is going to give. Often people will be excited about the idea of being included in them. Casting friends in acting or crew roles, or placing a call out on a Facebook or a Twitter or any other social media platforms can actually get you people who are really interested in the project. Now let's look in the storyboard aspect of it. So a storyboard is like a comic book like version of the film that is created but without the dialogue bubbles in it. Now it can be done on a large scale, drawing only each major scene or a transition. Designing the costumes and the sets. The sweeping panoramas of the big screen epics of 60s and 70s relied on the combination of wide open spaces and studio lot sets. So films rely heavily on the costumes to communicate essential character traits to the viewer. So considering lighting, some movies feature soft, almost gazy lighting that makes the actors and the sets look significantly more appealing than the entire film, more like a dreamlike sequence. Others favor a lighting sequence that looks closer to reality, and some people push the edges and go for a really hard light that is almost cutting the subject. Dressing the set. If possible, using the actual location is easier. Green screens can look fake in certain locations, but using one is permissible. It's simpler to film in a dinner than make a room like one. Choosing someone to direct with. The director controls the creative aspects of the movie and is key connection between the crew and the cast. Choosing a cinematographer or director of photography. This person is in charge of making sure the lighting and actual filming of the movie goes smoothly as well as deciding with the director how each shot should be framed, lit and shot. Assigning someone to the set design. This person is in charge of making sure the sets corresponding with director's creative vision. Now he or she might also be the props master, in charge of items that fill in the sets. Putting someone in charge of sound and music. The sound man may be one or more people. Dialogue needs to be recorded either in a scene or looped in later during the production process. Sound effects like gunshots or grenades or explosion all need to be created. Music needs to be sourced, recorded and mixed. The production process is complex yet simple and involves a lot of detailed planning. The production and the post-production stages are only viable when there is an extensive work done during the pre-production phase. It is always better to finish a project than leave it halfway and find ways to recoup the funds. So funding a production process is very difficult, and finding and convincing investors require determination and calculated risks. Now it's always better to work with the best possible equipment, which results in lesser post-production work and make the content visually appealing to the audience. Distribution mediums are vast, and the internet is a great enhancer for all beginners trying to produce their own content. Saying this, I hope you understood all the concepts involved in the production, the stages involved in the production process. Thank you.